Always thought that differences were a healthy thing, and that's why we're also healthy, because we have a lot of differences in this chamber. I've never seen a healthier group in my life.
That was Bob Dole in 1996 when he was Master of the Senate and the favorite guest on Sunday talk shows. He's been out of office now for 17 years, but when we sat down with him last week for a rare interview, we found some things haven't changed. He's as perceptive and as bitingly funny as ever.
We will send the President bill after bill, returning power and programs to the states and to the people.
Bob Dole was a man in full in the U.S. Congress. From 1961 to 1996, he represented Kansas on Capitol Hill, but he served the nation. He helped save Social Security, expand food stamps, and pass the Americans with Disabilities Act.
There was once a time when I doubted the future, but I have learned, as many of you have learned, that obstacles can be overcome.
That was his life's cause. A strapping young man from Russell, Kansas, he enlisted to fight in World War II when he was just 19. Grievously wounded in Italy, he spent 3 years in the hospital and came out without a kidney or a functioning right arm. Bob Dole today continues to be a portrait of courage. He is wheelchair-bound and losing his sight, but there is no self-pity, not a bit. You turn 90 in July, and my father used to say, growing old isn't for sissies, is it?
No, it's not for sissies, but, you know, there are a lot of benefits. You think about your past and what you've been able to accomplish, if anything.
When you see what's happening in Washington today, the chronic failure to be able to solve our problems, how frustrating is it for a legislator like you?
Yeah, it seems almost unreal that we can't get together on a budget or legislation. I mean, we weren't perfect by a long shot, but at least we got our work done.
So what's the problem? Why can't the President and Congress, why can't Republicans and Democrats get together and make deals?
I'm not a critic of the President, but I think one mistake he's made was not getting together more with Congress early on in his first administration. There was nothing like knowing the person you're talking to on the telephone. If you've had an opportunity to sit down with that person and visit, not about anything, but just visit. I was on a Social Security Commission.
Let me ask you about that. You were on the Greenspan Commission in the 80s, and you made a deal. You said nobody got everything, everyone gave something.
That's the way it has to work.
But it doesn't work that way anymore.
I know, but it's going to have to work, or the country's going to suffer. And the American people, I think, are partly at fault. You take a survey and say, cut spending 83% maybe, or whatever. But if you cut something they have an interest in, they're over you like a wet blanket. Surely you don't want to cut Medicare, Social Security.
You want to cut somebody else's program.
Yeah, if you leave me, exempt me, I'm all for you.
Is the Senate broken?
Well, it's bent pretty badly. As Howard Baker said, running the Senate is like herding cats. But it takes leadership. Somebody has to stand up and say, we're going to do this. And I used to, we'd get the group together responsible for that area, and we'd work together, and then I'd get up and leave. And I said, call me when you reach an agreement. And most of the time it worked, because they knew that I was willing to take the step with them.
You'd take the political heat with them.
Yeah, the leader takes the heat. I mean, there's a penalty for leadership, and one is you take a lot of heat.
In your first 2 years as a senator, there were 7 motions filed, cloture motions, to end debate. In the last 2 years, there were 115 cloture motions. Is the filibuster being abused, where it now takes 60 votes to pass anything?
No doubt about it. There's some cases we can probably justify it, but not many.
What do you think of your party, of the Republicans today?
I think they ought to put a sign on the National Committee doors that says closed for repairs until New Year's Day next year, and spend that time going over ideas and positive agendas.
You described the GOP of your generation as Eisenhower Republicans, moderate Republicans. Could people like Bob Dole, even Ronald Reagan, could you make it in today's Republican Party?
I doubt it. And Reagan couldn't have made it. Certainly Nixon couldn't have made it because he had ideas. And we might have made it, but I doubt it. I mean,
too moderate, too willing to compromise?
I just consider myself a Republican, none of this hyphenated stuff. I was a mainstream conservative Republican, and most people are in that category.
I asked Dole for quick reactions to some of the people and events he was involved in over the years, including his 1988 contest with George H.W. Bush for the Republican presidential nomination, and his battle with Newt Gingrich in the 90s when they led the House and Senate. What do you think of Barack Obama?
A great golfer. Very articulate.
As a president?
I think as a president, he lacks communication skills with his own party, let alone the Republican Party. And he's on the road too much.
Richard Nixon.
Brilliant. Criminal. Could have been a great president. Just threw it away.
As long as we're talking about controversies, when you were running for president in 1988 and you told Bush 41, you know what I'm going to say.
Y'all lying about my record.
Exactly. Yeah, he said you'd flip-flopped on taxes, I think.
Yeah, and I guess the point is I made a mistake. And I knew I'd made a mistake.
Newt Gingrich.
Newt is brilliant in many respects. He's the kind of a guy that can lead the revolution, but he can't lead after he succeeds. It was always what he did, what Newt did. And I was a tax collector for the welfare state. I don't have any quarrel with him now.
But you haven't forgotten either.
I haven't forgotten. And I'm glad he wasn't our nominee.
One last person. The guy who beat you in 1996, Bill Clinton.
Good guy. I remember getting a handwritten 7-page letter from Nixon telling me all about the race, and the last paragraph was, if the economy is good, you can't beat Clinton. That's probably not the only reason I didn't beat Clinton, but it was a factor.
Was World War II the defining event in your life?
Well, no doubt about it. It was changed my life.
When you think back to that terrible injury, you were 21 years old, it put you in a hospital for 3 years. What do you think about that now, that experience?
I think I learned a lot about patience. Some things take a long time, and you've got to be patient. And I like to get things done yesterday. But I learned in the hospital it's not possible.
Do you think you became Bob Dole in spite of your injury, or in a funny way because of your injury, because it made you the man who you were?
I think the second
Because of it?
description. I've never tried to use my disability, but I can't hide it. You know, I've gone through the bitter stage where you kind of feel sorry for yourself, but then you look around and find somebody who's in real trouble, and it changes your perspective about who's disabled and who's not.
You still go out to greet veterans of World War II when they come to D.C. on these honor flights. How come?
The veterans really like to see me, and for what reason? But in their eyes, I've sort of become America's veteran, and I think I've met groups from different states 161 times.
Wow.
And I'll be there this Saturday. I met a retired general who was in a wheelchair. He wanted to get a picture. But he said, I won't get a picture in this wheelchair. I want to stand up. And with a little help, he stood up and very proud. Made me feel good.
The greatest generation.
So these guys don't give up.
Finally, how would you like to be remembered? What do you want them to put on your tombstone?
Veteran who gave his most for his country, which I think is true, and I tried to make the most of it, and I think I did.
Let me just speak for everyone when I say
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. What a great American. Bob Dole still goes to the office each day to push a number of causes, but always at the top of his list, anything to remember and help our nation's veterans.